How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Courage or Frights, a channel where we talk about movies and gaming, especially those dealing with the sci-fi, action, and horror genres. And today, I'm going to be doing my review of Book of Boba Fett, Episode 5. So this is going to be kind of like an off-the-cuff sort of review. I just watched the episode. It's only been up for about an hour. And, I have watched all the previous episodes. I just haven't got around to actually reviewing them so far. And I mean, I like the show so far. There's been a lot of people that have some complaints with it, but overall, I think it's pretty decent. But this episode, this one's a tough one to review because two things. A, it was great, but it was a great episode of Mandalorian Season 3. It's like doesn't have anything to do with Book of Boba Fett, which is why we just kind of have to jump right into spoilers because there's nothing to talk about leading from the previous storyline. So, like in the previous episodes, like if you've watched episodes 1 through 4, you'll know that the last episode ended with Fennec and Boba talking about getting hired guns or getting muscle to help them fight their upcoming war with the Pikes. And then it closed with the Mandalorian theme song, so all of us kind of were expecting to see Mando in this episode. But I think a lot of us were expecting to see him at the end of the episode or something, and it was going to be kind of like a gathering of all the different bounty hunters or something, because Boba has to put a team together. But no, this episode starts at the very, very beginning with Mando at a Klatooinian meatpacking plant where he's basically just back to doing missions again. He gave up on ruling Mandalore. That just never became a thing. And he's back to just doing what he does best, doing missions. He's got to bring in some guy. The guy who runs the plant. He's been assigned to bring him in dead or alive. You get the whole, can bring you in warm or you can bring you in cold line. And, of course, starts a big fight with a bunch of Klatooinians, and he pulls the Darksaber out, which he still has, and he kills a bunch of them, and he frickin' cuts the dude in half with his table. So it's pretty wild. Like, it's like one of the most insane scenes we've seen in this show so far. And that's the opening. And then he goes back to this weird space station city sort of halo ring thing in space. And we find out that the Mandalorians from the first season are also there. So the armorer and that big heavy guy, Paz Vizsla. So he's part of that Vizsla family line. The line that created the Darksaber in the first place. And we get that. We get a whole lot of lore. This episode is one big giant exposition lore dump. For Mandalorian stuff, like we learn about Tar Vizsla creating the Darksaber like 1,000 years ago. We learn about the backstory of Bo-Katan. And we see flashbacks of the Imperial Purge of Mandalore and like all this stuff. But it's all Mandalorian stuff and has nothing to do with anything that's been set up in the Boba Fett show, which is why this is such a strange episode to review. But anyway, the armorer says that he needs to kind of get rid of that Beskar spear that he has, because Beskar's supposed to be for armor, not weapons, so he decides to have it forged into armor, but then he tells the armorer to make something for Grogu. So he's going to go see Grogu soon, or he's trying to. And then so she makes something, we don't know what it is, but she makes something for Grogu, and then she trains him in Darksaber combat. But while she's training him, Paz Vizsla, the big dude, challenges him. And because he's part of that Vizsla clan, he wants the Darksaber for himself. But during the course of the fight, Mando wins, but doesn't kill Vizsla, and he's questioned by the armorer, as to whether or not he's ever removed his helmet. Because remember, this is that, like, pseudo Death Watch, like, cult type thing, not the mainstream Mandalorians. And he eventually admits that he has removed his helmet, and he's banished from the order of 3, or whatever, Mandalorians that he used to be part of. However, he keeps the Darksaber, because he still won. So he leaves, and because he doesn't have a ship anymore, remember the Razor Crest was destroyed in the last season, he ends up basically taking the space bus and going to Mos Eisley. And the reason why he goes there is because Peli Moto, I think is her name, is the shipyard woman that kind of helps him out in the previous seasons. She sent him a message about a replacement ship that she had for him. And it turns out the replacement ship is actually an N1 Naboo starfighter, which is a rumor had been floating around. Some people online had made mention of this. The big one being Josh from Denim Nerds, if you watch that channel. He made this prediction like last week. It was like out of nowhere curveball random thing that Mando would be flying around in a Naboo starfighter, and whoever leaked that was right. That's exactly what happened. And we get a whole bunch of prequel fan service. So we get the Naboo starfighter. There's a long scene of them repairing the starfighter. We get a lot of weird dialogue about Peli Moto's previous relationships with the Jawas and whatnot. But yeah, it's kind of a long, drawn-out scene, but it's just the scene of them repairing and souping up his starfighter. And then he lets it rip on his test run. He goes flying through Beggar's Canyon, and it's basically the course from the pod racer scene from episode 1. So again, lots and lots of prequel fan service. And then he stupidly goes out into space and flies past that Starliner bus that he was in and gets in trouble with the space cops again, the New Republic fighters and the X-Wings. He ends up giving them the slip after a conversation with them, and he takes off, and his ship is so fast they can't even bother to go after him. They just let him go. And that's basically it. He comes back with the ship. He's got this brand new ship. It's super fast, super sleek, as those ships were in the original prequel trilogy. And at the 46-minute mark, Fennec Shand shows up and offers him the job to help Boba Fett. So we finally get back to Book of Boba Fett plot, like 2 minutes before the episode ends. And he agrees without question to help Boba, because Boba helped him before. He even agrees to do it for free. However, he says after he goes to see a little friend of his, meaning Grogu. So, and that's basically where the episode ends. So, of course, he's on board for the finale, which is only 2 episodes from now. So, personally, I give this episode like a 9 out of 10 on an enjoyment factor as a Mandalorian episode. As a Book of Boba Fett episode, it's like a 0, because it doesn't have anything to do with the Book of Boba Fett. But overall, it's very enjoyable, especially if you're a fan of the actual Mandalorian show. And this episode is actually problematic, in my opinion, because it makes the Book of Boba Fett look even worse by comparison. Like, I was enjoying Book of Boba Fett, but compared to this episode, I can start to see where people's complaints are, because this is just so much more interesting. We actually get off of Tatooine, we're seeing other planets, other things. One of the best fight scenes in the entire show is at the very beginning of the episode. And we get into all that Mandalore lore. And yeah, it's a great episode, but definitely more of a Mandalorian season 2.5, if you will. This was the episode directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who had directed previous episodes for Mandalorian, I think for both seasons. So she basically just directed another Mandalorian episode, which, yeah, she did a good job. I think all the episodes she did, I think, have been very good. So yeah, I like what she's coming up with in this show. Next episode is completely up in the air now, because one of two things could happen. Either they get back to the Book of Boba Fett storyline, and it's an episode where he collects some more hired muscle, which we thought this episode was going to be, at least I did, and goes from there, or Mando continues with Mando, and he goes off to see Grogu, and we end up seeing Luke again, and possibly Han and Leia and Chewie and like all those characters, which would be great. It's going to be massive fan service. Everybody's going to love it, but again, it's going to completely derail the Book of Boba Fett storyline to the point that it almost doesn't matter anymore. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next episode. That'll be kind of the proof to see if they maintain the storyline or not. No matter what happens, episode 7 has to conclude the Book of Boba Fett storyline. That has to be the big showdown between Boba and the Pikes. So hopefully they can get things back on track. If they do continue with Mando, that could cause problems for that finale episode, because it's going to be too derailed from the plot, in my opinion. But next episode is written and directed by Dave Filoni, I believe. And Dave Filoni has a history of kind of directing episodes that involve characters he created or dealt with in the Clone Wars. So, like, the last episode he directed was one introduced Ahsoka Tano. So we could see Ahsoka. I don't think that's going to be what happens here. But in my opinion, personal speculation, this is based on absolutely nothing, because I don't even know if there are leaks, I don't know them. But I would say one of two things could happen with Dave Filoni's name on the credits. One, it continues the Mando thing, and it just goes, he sees Grogu and he finds Luke and like all that stuff. Maybe Ahsoka, whatever. Bo-Katan could show up again, whatever. Something Filoni's done. Or we could delve more in with the Pikes and see who their hired guns are. Because I'm interested in that as well. Because I doubt the Pikes didn't bring anybody with them. So Boba's trying to get muscle. I'm sure the Pikes already brought their muscle. And if it's Dave Filoni, my bet would be on Cad Bane possibly making an appearance. Because Cad Bane and Boba Fett have a lot of bad blood between them. There was a deleted scene where Boba Fett supposedly killed Cad Bane in a shootout, and that's where he got the dent in his helmet. But that's non-canon at this point, because it was never put into the show. So maybe we could see a variation of that in this show. But we'll have to see to find out. So overall, yeah, I very much enjoyed this episode, but it is a far cry from the plot that had been established so far. So with only 2 episodes left, not quite sure how this is going to end. So that's my view on Book of Boba Fett episode 5. So if you saw the episode, let me know your opinion of it in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. See ya.